Control. I don't have the primarily Watching and Delinquent duo, but I have most the rest of the deck. I didn't buy this deck. I built it out of cards I either had or I bought. A couple of the cards are new to substitute for a couple of those, even though they're not proxies. I do have a couple proxies in here, but um, on in a couple of days I will probably, by the time I've uploaded this I would have already done it, but I'm doing a thing that's like a little event, but it's not even casuals. It's like less informative than even casuals, so you can play band cards, you can play anything, but they're doing a little tournament for that. And since I've had my school holidays, this is my last week of it, so I'm doing it then because they organised it then, their tournament thing where you get 3 Millennium Pack, you pay $10. No matter what you get 3 Millennium Pack, so it's sort of like casuals, but you can play band cards and whatever deck you really want. So yeah, that's, except Monarchs. I don't want Monarchs, so I'm not going to be playing that to be trolly. I'm not going to be playing that. I want to play Goat Control since I love the feel of this format, even though it's not nostalgia to me because I actually didn't play back then. But I'm a fairly new player to the game. But yeah, if you see Norden oh, sorry, I won't go into extra deck yet, sorry. But I do have Norden in the extra deck. I know Norden wasn't out then, but it's still a really, really good card to have as an extra deck card. Like, I know I probably shouldn't be using cards that weren't out back then, but like I said, a couple of substitutes and Norden, even though it wasn't out back then, it's just too good to not put in, especially I don't have instant fusion, so I actually can't summon it off the instant fusion. So that's just like one reason why I did that, so I could summon off Metamorphosis, and it's no Xyz plays because there's no Xyz monsters whatsoever. I'm not going to be that dog and ruin all your goat childhood memories, but yeah, I think that it was a really good format, Goats. But again, everyone has their own opinion, like which ones. I think it's a really good old format though. I think it's probably not the best format ever, but it's a pretty good one up there in my opinion. Even though, like I said, it's nothing to do with nostalgia, but I do like older Yu-Gi-Oh! I do like newer Yu-Gi-Oh! As well, since I am playing newer Yu-Gi-Oh! And I got introduced with newer Yu-Gi-Oh! But older one, probably because some of the cards were used in the show. I know that's a little bit cliche that some were used in the show, but I think that it was just I think it was skilled, but there was also an exception. You also had more of a variety of a choice to build your deck than just, like, there were some staple cards that you had to run, but not every card you had to run, and a couple I don't actually have that were in a lot of GOAT deck profiles, but a lot of these cards I wanted to get back from the time, but there are a couple of substitutes that aren't proxies, so yeah, I'll just get continuing with Goats. Here's my only normal monster in the deck, Force Raider. It's a really good beat stick, but besides that, that's pretty much all. That's the only normal monster I actually run. It's also a Metamorphosis target for another card we'll go into later. But the Sinister Serpent, I'm actually going to be playing this deck at like a thing that's slower than competitive, so lower than casual, sorry. So I'm going to ask if I can get his original effect back, which pretty much, his new effect's similar. He's a rudder, but it's worse. It's like really, 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 really bad now. It used to be like decent or good, but even if it had its original effect now, it would only be like mish, when there's Burning Abyss that do this but 10 times more its effect. But its old effect just allows it, once it's sent to the graveyard during your standby phase, you can add it back to your hand. But you can do so many explosive plays with it in this deck. 2 Magician of Faiths allow you to get, if they're flip summoned, they allow you to get any spell from your graveyard. I did have to proxy a couple cards, but it's still a really great card in Goat Control format, and even still sort of now, it's not as relevant anymore, but still alright. This is one of my few actual control in this Chaos Control build. Morphing Jar, not everyone ran it, but sometimes if you only have 1 or 0 cards in your hand, or you only have a Sinister or only a few that is a really bad hand, you set this, flip this, and if they have a really good hand or a lot in their hand, they've just lost all their hand. They might get to draw 5, but sometimes that could be worse than what they originally had, or sometimes you're just getting like better than what you actually had, so that's a really good card. Another control-ish hand control card is Spirit Reaper. It was used by most people, and I see why, and I use it as well, because it can't be destroyed by battle. If it's targeted by any spell or trap, it's destroyed. So it's destroyed like by spell or traps pretty much, or effects, monster effects, sorry, if it's targeted by an effect, while this card's face up. But also, when this card inflicts damage, you also discard 1 card from their hand. It's only going to inflict 300, but still it's hand control. One Jalgan, it's more of a these days tech, but he is also famous for last turn OTK and that sort of stuff. But he's also was sort of good back then, stopping them from BLSing or Thousandizing with Metamorphosis or whatever their Metamorphosis plays are. But it's still really, really good to use. Even back then and now, because the people that I'm going to be playing, they don't really play too many competitive decks, but they do play some decks that special summon every now and then, so destroying their special summoning board or just preventing them from doing that's really, really good. So yeah, 1 Sengen, because it searches like a quarter of your deck at the least. But yeah, it's just a really good search target, and every goat control person deck profile I've seen runs it, and I see why. Most decks that you could run it back at the day that you could run it, you would run it. It's not as good as Witch of the Black Forest, but it's still really good. So you have no ban list there, so it's really I play it during my school holidays because it's only on Tuesdays. So yeah, it is at the place I normally go for casuals. So yeah, I just go there on Tuesdays, and this will be the last week of the holidays of my school holidays that I will be doing it in. So it's only in tomorrow for me, but for you it would have already passed. But we have the Battling Locomotive. It's a good it's not like a hand control for your opponent, but it does allow you to draw 1 card. It isn't the best these days, but it's still good if you're playing a goat deck, because getting that +1 can be crucial. DDD Warrior Lady can get rid of pretty much any of your problems. It's like, okay, you summon a big thing that I generally wouldn't be able to run over. I vanish that and this. Or sometimes you will just sit on this, or you'll let them destroy it to just vanish one of their things anyway. So it's not as a neg to you, it's a neg to, it's like a lose nothing thing instead of a -1. Breaker, so it can destroy a spell or trap, or it can just be a 1900 body, which is still pretty hard to deal with for just a non-tribute monster. Kaiku, its 1800 body's pretty impressive, but it also just stops them from vanishing. Even though I don't think any of them play Cosmo, it's still really good against decks like that. And even back then, like Chaos Control, even though that was pretty much dying, it was still good against Chaos Sorcerers and BLSs, and it's still good against some other decks that special summon. And also, if they want to ever, like, let's say, Call the Haunted or something, or reborn them back, when this inflicts damage, vanish 2 of their monsters from their grave. So I was originally running a couple decks inside, but it's even good against Monarchs, really. 1 Exterion, back then it was really good. It's not as good now, but it was really good for piercing into goats. That's why I only run it at 1. Some aggressive players used to run it at like 2. But it pierces into goats, but the effect is it loses 400, but then you can pierce if you want to make it lose 400 for the rest of the turn. Then you have 2 Air Knight Pashas, which is pretty much the better version of that, but it does require a tribute, but it does get out one of your things with Metamorphosis a bit easier, because there's only 2 targets that allow it to do that. But pretty much it does piercing, and when it inflicts damage you get to draw a card, so that's really good hand advantage. Troll card, but as well it's a spammer card, so pretty much When this card inflicts damage, declare one card type. They have to okay. You declare one card type. Your opponent has to send one of those card types from their deck to the graveyard. A lot of people ran this, but a lot of people also didn't run this because its effect is it negates all traps while this card's on the field. So that can be good, but it sometimes can hurt you, but it can sometimes hurt your opponent more. That's what you really hope for. So you don't get mirror forced or something, or even worse, let's say. One Blackluster Soldier, Envoy of the Beginning. It's still really good today. Not as good anymore, but you vanish one Light, one Dark, special summon it. It can attack twice if it destroys an opponent's monster. It can attack again only once again that turn, or you can just banish a real problem card. So it's still really good. Going into the two of the Trinity, Pot of Greed. Hand Destruction wasn't used then. It's pretty much like a Graceful Charity / Delinquent Duo, because it does allow your opponent to it does make your opponent lose 2, but they also get to draw 2, and it does make you lose 2 but then draw 2, a bit like Graceful Charity where you draw 3, discard 2, but not quite as good. But there was none available at the place that I was going to, and I'm not going to look too far for a card that's 2 cards that are banned that I can't get too far over my way to get banned cards. If I can't get them from my vendor, I don't really want to get them from trade that much if they're banned. So here's pretty much, since I don't own what you call Snatch Steal, these two were, one was used more than the other back then, but I have Brain Control and Creature Swap. More people use Creature Swap with the Scapegoat, and I see why, and I sometimes do that. But Brain Control, also you steal it for one turn, go into an Air Knight Power Chef or something. Monster Reborn, because I don't have Premature, but I'm not going to proxy it, since I generally proxy cards I only have, generally. And I don't want to... These days I want a more proxy where I have the picture and the word type. So I generally don't... Again, I couldn't really find it, and I don't want to really proxy cards that I don't really have of anymore. Generally, I proxy cards I only have 1 of when I need 3 of them. If it's a really bad case, I will, but the thing is, I want them with their picture and their typing. I wanted to try to get them to the right size originally, but for some reason, the computers that I've been using don't let me do that. So at the moment, I'm just using Monster Reborn. And generally no one will know because you can play banned cards in that mini tournament. Plus it's like not the one to show you that this is the best ever Goat Control format deck. But now you have 2 Noblemen across out, which were used very heavily back then. It's pretty much you vanish your opponent's face down monster and you vanish all other copies that either player have in the deck. So especially good against archetypes these days if they somehow have to set something if they're really desperate and they run 3 of that, and they generally would need it at 3, you just vanished their 3 of card that they needed. You also... Some people ran 2, but I run 3 Scapegoat because you really like defending yourself with this deck and also to sometimes pull the Metamorphosis off. But now we have the 3 Metamorphosis. I had to proxy 2 of them. I only have actually a normal 1 of them. But yeah, so Metamorphosis, originally I didn't have one, but I got it off a trade for something that wasn't that good, so I didn't mind then. So then I decided I'd actually build Goat Control format, or Goat Control, sorry. So yeah, my extra deck only has a few fusions, even though you could have as many as you want. It's just I didn't have that many fusions available to me at the moment. I probably do, but I just don't want to really bother putting them in the extra deck. But you do need this at 3. You do need this at 3. Because you can run it at 2, but when I was testing with it, you were really more relying on your Magician of Face to get these back for you. And that's good but bad at the same time, because there's so many other good spells you also want to get back. Yugioh. So I have to run the 3 Book of Moon for my Thousand Eyes and other cards, because this can still be an alright card. 1 Lightning Vortex, because Raigeki was banned back at this time, and I don't have Raigeki anyway. So it's a really good Sinister servant target from your hand. So you discard Sinister Serpent, destroy all face-up monsters your opponent controls. So if you did that with the Sinister Serpent, or you can just discard any card, but if you did it with the Sinister Serpent, you'd be getting it back your next turn. So you'd be putting your opponent at minuses instead of at more minuses than what you would. Now for the spell and trap distraction. I only have 2 more spells, and I'll do 1 trap that is spell and trap destruction. MST was only at 1 back then, so I have 1 MST. Heavy Storm was legal, so that's at 1. I was thinking Giant Trune, but then I thought, nah, not really. Dust Tornado, moving on to the traps, but also this is the last distraction trap. Dust Tornado, it was at more, but I decided, just because of the room, I only wanted 1 Dust Tornado. Another thing as well, it does allow you to set another card from your hand. So maybe if you use like something like your Locomotive, drawn 1 card during your opponent's turn, you destroy one of their set cards, and they still have another one, and you have MST in your hand. You could set that and then destroy their card, I guess. But generally, you don't use it for its second effect. You use it for its first one to destroy 1 spell trap from your opponent's side of the field. Also now for sort of like I only have 1 that really is a full-on stall card, and that's Threatening Roar, just because that just negates your opponent's battle phase, so that's if you're really desperate and you really need that. On to now the major destruction cards, or major trap destruction cards. Ring of Destruction, it gets its original effect back, so just both players, I'll ask them for the original effect back, so both players just take the damage equal, or you target 1 monster on the field, both players take the damage equal to the attack of that monster. 1 Sharutsu Armor. Originally I was thinking of 2 because most Goat Controller used it at more, but again, room restraints. So pretty much when an opponent's monster attacks, just destroy it. Then you have your Mirror Force. I did have an ultra rare, but originally I was going to put a secret rare, but then I decided the only one you could get really back then was a Metal Raiders ultra rare, so I decided this isn't Metal Raiders, but this is an ultra rare, so I thought that might fit it a bit more. 1 Torrential Tribute, so when they summon a monster to destroy all monsters on the field, that is really good with Sangan. You have a Sangan on the field, they use up their summon. Let's say if they can't special summon, you used up their normal summon, and now you've also got to search for it for doing that, and you don't lose any life points because of it. 1 Bottomless Trap Hole to get rid of like anything that is really, really, really hard to get rid of or is too big for you. And 1 Call the Haunted to bring back something like a Sangan or something really good from your grave. I'm not sure if I did this, but now for your Sangan search targets in the deck, so yeah, you have your Sangan search targets. I'm not going to include Sangan itself just because, like, you're not going to search itself off it because it's already going to be in the grave because you're only allowed to run 1 back then. But it can search at least 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 cards, or it can search 8 because you have another mystical elf. But if it's your first card and you didn't draw any of these monsters, you can search at least 8 monsters off Sangan. It isn't the best searcher, which is still far better, but it was banned then, so you can search the Sinister, you can search the jar, you can search the Morphing Jar, the Magician of Faith, Jaugen, Spirit Reaper, the Locomotive guy, and you can search DD Warrior Lady. So it's some good searches that you can search. Now for the extra deck, 1 card actually isn't like goats at all in this one, but since I didn't have too many fusions that I splashed in, and since I don't own instant fusion, I wanted to put this one in instead. And you can't Xyz with it, so it's not as powerful, but Norden, bit cheeky though, I decided to do that. But what you can do it with a Force Raider or any like level 4. For example, you play Metamorphosis, summon into that. Then if your level 4 that you Metamorphosis is a really strong attack monster, you just special summon that back, or any other level 4 really powerful strong monster. Or it can be lower, so what you can do, you can summon this, by, let's just have an example of you force rated Metamorphosis and you have Jalgan in your grave. So you Metamorphosis Norden with, you summoned it with activating. I'll get a Metamorphosis. Sorry, you summoned it by metamorphosing the Force Raider to go into Norden, but you had a Jalgan in your grave. So then you just special the Jalgan out, and they can't special summon. Or you special it in defense mode. Now they can't special summon. You've got a 2000 beta. So yeah, next card in the extra deck is one Fiend Skull Dragon. So it's pretty much like a Jinzo, but it can also its effect is a fusion summon of this card can. Yep, it's pretty much like, okay, negate the effects of flip effect monsters, negate any trap effect that targets this card, and destroy it. So it's not going to be destroyed as easy, and it also negates flip effect monsters, which is really nice. Then you have to run your 3000 eyes that you have to proxy to, because I only own one, and it's gone down, but it wasn't a really expensive card at the start of the format, and I actually got one at the start of this format by trade. So yeah, I was a little bit silly on that one getting it at the start, but still, it's a really nice card, and I no offense, I like it. Now, for your 4 Scapegoat tokens, they are needed in the deck. For your Scapegoat tokens, you actually don't need these. You can use spells sometimes in your grave. That's what I generally do if I don't have tokens on me. But that is my Goat Control deck profile. And don't forget your 1000 eyes if you're building them. But watch out. If they're anything over like $6, you should be watching out. Depending on... the only one where it should maybe be over $6 is your Pharaoh Servant. And it shouldn't be much over $6. So be wary if you are building Goat Control and for 1000 eyes. It should only be that much. But yeah, that's my Goat Control deck. And MP. This is MP Cards and Games, and I actually did get to proxy the Graceful Charity and Delinquent Duo. They aren't as big as my other proxies, but they still worked. And I don't have them to show you right now since don't have them on me. So I also, if I didn't say why I ran Norden, it was just that it was pretty good, and I didn't have enough like fusions that could be easily summoned with Metamorphosis, so I ran Norden even though it wasn't back then. Sorry, goat people, if you're gonna rage at me, but yeah, this is MP Cards and Games signing out, and I did want to make another deck profile, and I will be making more very soon, because I know how much you guys love my deck profiles. My Yuzenju deck profile from this date that I was recording this has the most views out of any other of my videos. MP Cards and Games signing out.